people. Welcome back to the Ponder on That show with myself, Saffron King. I'm the host, and we're here today with the beautiful Fatima Elswify. She is a producer at Oprah Winfrey's Network and also a producer in the same room, which is they produce faith-based content where the culture meets faith. So hi Fatima, it's so good to
Hi, Saffron. Thank you for having me.
oh,
I'm so excited to speak with you today.
I'm more excited. I feel so humbled that you said yes. So thank you. So
Thank
we'll just
you.
jump straight into it. So Fatima, how did you get into producing at Own and the same room? I don't mind if you answer either one separately.
Yeah, well, it was all a God journey, to be honest. I studied economics at Spelman, in Atlanta, and I never thought I'd be a producer. I thought for sure I was taking the route of corporate America and just climbing the ladder in corporate America. And, as I started getting closer to God, I started realizing I'm not passionate about what I was doing. And I knew I love to talk and I love talking about things that matter, right? Things going on in culture. Especially at Spelman, I started just learning about our history here. And I wanted to bring narratives to the screen that mattered and inspired. And I didn't really know how that would look. So I started similar to you, doing things online, blogging, like just having fun doing things like that. And then before I knew it, I was like, why don't I think I can pursue a career in something that helps develop my skills, in this area? And I didn't know it was producing at first. I wasn't sure. So I started dabbling in different things within the industry. I worked as a publicist. And then I just got the clarity, just talking to more people, meeting more people. I'm big on like building relationships because it helps you figure out what is your thing. And I knew I wanted to be a producer. It's very specific for me. And so even at OWN, I started as an assistant. I'm very big on what is it, the scripture, like when you are humbled, God
Oh,
will exalt you.
don't despise humble beginning. Oh,
Yeah,
always.
even that
Yeah,
too.
yeah, don't, yeah.
Yes, all that kind of intertwines
Yeah.
because I'm like, I think I learned more by starting at the bottom. I learned about different facets of the industry. I was like a gatekeeper for a lot of things. And then slowly I grew into the role. And then for the same room, one of my best friends, Stephanie EK, the pastor, she knew that I was producing already. So she's like, yeah, we have this idea. I'm working with the creator of the Shade Room. She wants to do something faith-based. So I was part of the beginning of that, like creating what the show was going to be. And it's become kind of a movement. It's kind of bigger than just a show because our online, like our social media has been doing well. So relationships are a huge part of my journey, I would say, to get to where I am. And I say dabble in other things to kind of find like what really is my thing. And our things change. Look, in 5 years, who knows what I'll be doing. But I think staying open is important too.
It's amazing what you said as well. Like when you said at first that you were interested in economics, so you went to study economics, but then
Yes.
God knew, it's like God knew what you were passionate about, even though we don't always know what we're passionate about at first. It's like God
No.
can take us on a journey. I've been through that before so many times where I've chosen a path. Like I remember I wanted to go down politics for a while and then I got the job. God allowed me to have the job, but then I wasn't passionate about it at all. It was just, I just didn't like it. So it's
Wasn't
amazing
your thing.
how exactly it wasn't my thing. So that's beautiful how you said that. And I forgot to also mention to tell everyone, like, you're also known for working on Oprah Winfrey's interview with Meghan and um what's the Harry, Meghan and Harry, yes.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
Adele, One Night Only, which in the UK, that was a big
Oh yeah,
deal
you're
for
UK
us. Yeah,
people.
yeah. I mentioned it. Have you been to the UK before?
I haven't. I'm
Oh,
like, I
you
need
have
to.
to
I
come.
have to come.
You have
Yes,
to.
yes.
I
I
think it,
actually plan to. I mean, I don't have the plans, but next year Paris, and then I'm like, while I'm just making my way there, I'm gonna do London and
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to do the whole thing. Yeah.
So, Fatima, as a believer in Jesus, how have you been able to connect your faith with your work, with your line of work?
I would say my faith is everything. And sometimes I have to be reminded of that when you're just like in the weeds of just work, like day-to-day work, because like my story is such a God journey of how God brought me into certain rooms. Like I'll even share the story when I got the job at OWN. I was just, I don't know, it was like God imprinted that on my heart. Like it kept coming up for me. And I was like, okay. And I reached out to a friend who could at least get me in the room to meet with their HR department. But there was no jobs. Like he made it clear to me. He was like, called HR, there's no jobs, but I think it's worth you meet them so that if something opens up, who knows? And I go in there, and at that point, I was like really on fire for Jesus. So I wasn't, and I'm not shy about my faith, but I was almost like, when you're really young and you're just like,
Yeah.
blah. I was sharing with her, like the HR representative, like, I just want to do inspiring content. Like, I love God. And some of the content I do now is focused on God. And I just know that working for someone as iconic as Oprah and doing certain work, could help teach me how to do things in the faith realm, just because she has, she's with interviews, she has so much experience. And I just put out specifically what department I'd want to work in, what job, all that. And she was like, okay, I don't know if it's your faith or what, but 30 minutes before you walked in here, someone quit in
Wow.
the very department you want to work in.
Wow. Oh my
And I
God.
got that job in that department. So I would say my faith has been a huge critical part of my journey, just trusting God along the way. I would say, without being like super specific, you may be working in the industry, you may be working for people that don't believe exactly what you believe. And I think it's important to stay true to yourself, not compromise. I think it's important to respect everyone, even while you're strong in what you believe. And yeah, I think finding a community, I'm just big on community, because when you have fellow believers in your friend group and all that, they help you stay grounded and see God in like where he's taking you, And yeah, I just say like just keeping God first and just seeing how he shows up and how I treat people and how in the small things. I think sometimes we always want the big things with God, but God's like, I'm in the journey with you. I'm going to open doors as I go, but it's not so much about the open doors. It's about who he's cultivating you to become. And he'll shock you. Like, I'll just say he's surprised me, and he's shown me things that are just like, whoa. And he's opened doors that it's all for his glory, but ways I just don't feel qualified for. I'll put it that way.
Wow,
And
that's amazing. That's amazing. And I hear you talk about community a lot. And I remember one of your in not one of your talks in the same room, you were speaking about how important is like friendships, like, and you went through a phase where your friendship circle wasn't where God had aligned you to be, but then he surrounded you with people who you were meant to be around. How important is having the right friendships around, would you say, out of 10?
oh my gosh, it's everything. Because I would say my faith, I mean, I've been a believer since I got saved young, but I didn't know how to walk with God until I would say my early 20s. And even though like in college, I had a couple of friends that were believers and we pray together, or it just seemed very unrealistic to live this godly life I was reading about in the Bible. And I was like, but I had the conviction. So I was torn for many years of like, I know I got to give my everything to God, but I was kind of lukewarm. I was on the fence. I know I have to give God everything. And I think for me, finding like a church with people my age, like that could sound superficial, but the truth of the matter is you need people that have similar interests in you that also love God. You know what I mean? So when I finally found that, it felt less impossible to live a life completely devoted to God. So at that time, like I was saying, I had friends that were still doing what I used to do, just in the club, you know, doing all the stuff I used to do. And I just noticed like I was developing this hunger for God, and my conviction honestly was high, and I felt like an outcast within that group. So I just knew like this is not where I'm going. And and I'm just big on like praying for that thing you want, because God, like I'm telling you, God will do it, but it might not come in the package you think, or how you think, or when you think. But there are things that are happening in my life right now that I prayed for in the beginning of the year. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this might not look the way I pictured it, but it's what I prayed for. So staying open is important, because God wants to do it the way he wants to do it, but he cares about what we care about, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that also it's like that's trust as well, to be like, oh God, I really want this, or this is my fixated panel, my vision. But then God's like, just trust me, I've got it sorted. That's trust as well. As much as it may sound like, oh, easy just to sit down and just wait on God, but actually it's quite hard. It is quite a hard thing. So it's beautiful how you found yourself, and I feel like your journey is a trust journey, because even I was watching another interview that you were in as well, when you were talking about there was a period where you wasn't working for some time and you just got into the industry.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
and I can relate with that, Fatima. I can relate in terms of that quiet period where, you're waiting on God. You're like, okay, God, what's next? And I feel like your journey is definitely a trusted journey.
Oh my goodness, yes. And even it's just funny because you think like when you finally surrender an area to God, like, oh, I'm never gonna doubt God again. Like I there's other areas currently that God's like, you don't you trust me in theory. Like God is God, of course, but your heart, something is withheld, or and I feel like he pokes at those areas, because he's like, I want to get you to surrender lovingly. He pokes at the areas, but sometimes it can feel like, God, why? So, so when I was unemployed for all those years, like career, especially like with my background going to Spelman, a lot of women who went to Spelman are very successful. I remember at the time I was unemployed, a lot of my peers were like already managers at companies and just doing really big things. And I'm over here unemployed, confused about what I'm doing. And I felt like God was like, stop comparing yourself, stop caring. I need you to, and almost like that was like the craziest level of surrender God brought me to. Because I was like, I got to the point where I completely gave him my career. I was like, God, and the temptation was everywhere. Even my mom, she's a believer too, but she's like, I know this financial advisor who can get you a job at this bank. And I went to the interview at the bank, and it would have been a good job, but I felt like God was like, no. And I was like, I can't move forward with that, mom. And she's like, I don't know what you're doing. You know how my parents can be like, I just
Yeah.
don't understand what's going on. I don't think this is of God. And I'm like, you just have to trust. Like, I believe God's. And now she's so proud, but she couldn't. And I don't think it's because people are against you. I think God wants you to trust him so much. You don't need someone to co-sign. You just need to get to that place. And I remember, like I said, I was on and off, unemployed, got little tiny gigs here and there. And I finally got like this gig that I really wanted. No, it wasn't this one. It was a gig before OWN. It was at DreamWorks.
Okay.
And I got it. And I was excited, like finally a good job. And I remember talking to a friend. I was like, but you know what's crazy? If God tells me to quit this job, even though I wanted this so bad, I will quit. And I meant it.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, finally, I'm so connected to God that this isn't as big as it once was. So I think that that's important and it doesn't happen. It's a daily thing. But I remember where my heart was at that time. And it was finally in a place where I'm like, I'm on assignment for God. I'm not trying to just get things to make me look better or feel better. And sometimes I struggle with that today. I'm like, yeah, I was that way then. Am I still that way? God, check my heart, you know? So
That
yeah.
humility.
Mhm.
So what would you say to someone currently like listening, watching this, who's currently unemployed and they're struggling like with comparison and with their purpose and identity?
Yeah, I would say even when I was unemployed, I stayed busy. And busy, I want to say the right word. I stayed active.
Mm-hmm.
And active for me was like honing into one, God and community. So like I was always at church. I'm not saying for me, it was just helpful. Like I went to the midweek service. I was there on Sundays. I was in a Bible study. I think just being like totally consumed with God, because you have the time. If you think about it, you have the time and you're going to miss that time. So like if you're blessed, and I know we have finances, so I want to also be sensitive to that. But
Mm-hmm.
if you could live at home, I mean, I did live at home at the time. If you could, yeah, live with a friend or try to use that time to really, really give your life to God. And then I would say, develop a healthy routine, like learn how to love yourself better and take care. Because once God does elevate you, you're going to want to have those things intact, like those good practices of like well-being and health. And then also meet people. Like if you know where you kind of want to be, because seeking God will also show you what you want to do. So that's why I said that should be number one. But just going out and just being like, I kind of think it's, if you don't know what you're supposed to do yet, I saw this girl and I kind of like the way she carries herself and she works for this company. I'm going to ask her out to coffee. And at first it's awkward, but when you do it enough times, you didn't even know, like for me, I was doing it kind of from a curious place, but like years down the road, I'm like, oh, I know that person from coffee. And yeah, nothing fruitful came of it, but now I know you, and you just never know how God will use a relationship, and it may be way later down the road, but it expands your network. And it's like, it's funny, my mom's always like, when we travel together, she's like, everybody. And I can say it's because of that time I was unemployed, because I was just curious and hungry, and that doesn't, and it wasn't desperate, it was just like I genuinely wanted to find out what I'm here to do and all that. So I would say just get out there. You hear about a networking event, go to it. You get invited to something, go to it. Like, you never know.
Absolutely. No, thank you for sharing that, Fatima. And also, I have to say, I love like because I know you post about your mom a lot on your Instagram and stuff. She's so beautiful, and I think it's so
Thank you.
important when a mother and daughter have such a good relationship. I think that's also really important. So I just want to say,
Thank you.
yeah, yeah, and I can
I'm
see.
like everyone, yeah. I'm
I can
like, she
see
stayed on my Instagram.
Oh, I can see why you are the way you are. But that's what I'm trying to say, yeah.
Thank you.
And Fatima, what would you say has allowed you to remain successful throughout like life's hardships?
Yeah, because I would say I went through a very hard time last year to this year. I would say it honestly is a great escape too. So like it's hard though. It's hard. Like when you're going through a hard time, it's hard to be as productive as you once were. It's hard to stay focused. And that's why I think like God's grace, as much as I like some things I want to give a strategy for, and some stuff I can't make sense of. So I would say sometimes I feel like I'm just like being in God, like there's just like this covering. And like I would even say when I was at my lowest and hardest point, which was like late last year to the beginning of this year, um, work wasn't that busy.
Wow, oh, that's
So it was almost
nice.
like, yeah, it was almost like there was grace to rest. There was grace to process. Um, and yeah, and I'm grateful for that, because I do feel like it's a beautiful thing to have in a hard time, to have purpose and to have something, because I think that's how people do fall into depression, is when not only are you going through a hard time, but you don't feel like you know why you're getting up in the morning, right? And that's why I think like when you're unemployed, for example, it's good to develop practices that may not be from an employer. It could just be, I'm getting up and I'm meeting a friend for a hike or a walk. I'm getting up and I have that meeting with so-and-so for coffee, and you make your schedule feel purposeful. And that just takes that little bit more effort. But before you know it, it becomes a habit. So I would say as much, and God has been showing me that lately. I want to give strategies to certain things, but I would say his grace is like what's happening in my life lately, which I can't share yet, but
Oh,
certain things
yeah.
certain things are happening, and I'm like, wow, that's just God. And I spent like a lot of time with God last night. He was just showing, it's just like getting in tune with his voice. Cause sometimes I also can relate to like feeling like you don't hear God and all that sometimes. And I feel like it's purposeful too, because God wants us to like seek him with all of our heart. And before you know it, we'll have that breakthrough. So just making space for that, I think, is really important.
That's beautiful. That's really encouraged me. So I definitely know other people listening. It's really encouraging because, like you said, it's about being intentional, isn't it? And some days there'll be days where it's harder to get up than others. But sometimes it's about just getting up and, like you said, going for a walk with a friend. It doesn't even have to be completely busy, but at least just doing something. So that's
It
really
could be 3 things that make you feel so great. It's like, I spent
yeah,
an hour studying the Bible. I went and I took a walk. Because, some seasons aren't busy.
yeah,
I took a
exactly.
walk. I did some research about a program I'm interested in. Like this is random, but I have my real estate license. I still haven't really used it like that. But I remember during my unemployed phase, I went and got my real estate license because it's something I always knew I wanted. But and look, who knows? It might be in 5 years and God's like, that's why I had you get it. Or it might be, who knows? But it's always something I knew I wanted to have. And I use that idle or that downtime to do that. So it's like take up a class, take up something. And I know everyone's not so fortunate with like being able to stay with their parents, right? So I would say like even if you have to take a job that doesn't, I probably should say that doesn't match your passion, that's okay too, because that job is still getting you out and doing things, because purpose isn't always this phenomenal career. Purpose is being kind to your neighbor, like learning how to interact with people. So getting up and going to like a job that you may not be passionate about is teaching you how to work with others. And God can use, I will say that, because I had some jobs that made no sense before I got the job I wanted. But then I was like, oh, that's why God had me do that, because it helped me learn how to assist and serve. So now when I'm assisting and serving here, I'm not prideful about it because I've already learned. So I would say, don't be scared of those jobs that don't make sense, because it could just be a place God has you temporarily until the next door opens.
Amazing. No, thank you for that. So Fatima, I don't know if you can answer this. This is a spontaneous question, and feel free if you don't want to answer, but what has been your favorite project to work on at OWN? That's already been TX'd, obviously, yeah. So
Yeah.
Ed.
You know what? So I'm trying to say, I mean, I could share because they're already out there. Working on Super Soul for Oprah has been really cool because for whatever reason, this is God too. Even though like Oprah is open to a lot of different belief systems and things like that, for some reason I always ended up with like the Christian guests. So like reading their books and stuff. So that's been cool. And like I've been able to pitch guests that resonate more with what I believe in and things like that. And I think that was cool because those skill sets helped me apply to like other things I like to do that are in the faith realm and all that. So I would say Oprah Super Soul has been my favorite of all the things. I've done cool names. I did like the Michelle Obama, like all that. Like for my resume, it's like, oh, I did that.
Oh
That's
yeah, I did that. I love how you say it so just so casually, Fatima, like, oh yeah, I worked with Michelle Obama's interview, I worked with this. It's like, wow. I feel like that's also your humility as well, like, and you knowing that it's God who's giving you this platform. But also it is your light, isn't it? Because I know the scripture says, let your light shine. So he's also giving you that space to shine as well.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, like I'm telling you, like I just couldn't. That's why whenever I even give advice, it's always God-centered, because there, I didn't go to film school. I don't have that background. So I couldn't give a formula on how to get here. I can only say my formula was seeking God, building community. I'm big on that. I think that's part of my purpose, is like people, like community.
I feel like that's going to be my headline for this interview: building community.
Yes, because I always end up talking about it. I'm like, what is that? But I think I'm a connector. Like, when we start learning our purpose, it's like, I notice like sometimes in friend groups, I'll be like the one that brought the group together, or things like that. So you have to pay attention to those things, because those are part of your gifts. So yeah, so those are some of the more exciting things. And then podcasts, I get to work on like overseeing some podcasts at home, which I love. So yeah.
Oh wow, thank you for that, Fatima. And is there anything on your heart left that you'd like to share with us, or anything that you feel led to share? Any last words?
Well, I want to say to you, thank you, just for this platform and just for your support. And I believe for you, a lot of good things are coming to you. And I'm not just saying that. I'm like, I just feel like you exude that humility.
Wow.
I'm trying to think of anything else, but I really see that for you. Like, your story is gonna all unfold. Where God's gonna surprise you. I see that for you as well. And anyone listening, I think that same thing. Like, if you truly, and surrender is such a hard thing to conceptualize. Like, how do you surrender? But if you take time and really learn about what it means to surrender to God, for whoever's listening, watch how your life starts to come into alignment. And then the crazy thing about it is you're not as desperate for the things that may be aching your heart right now. Like, God will give you all the things that may be kind of aching at you right now, but by the time he gives it to you, you're going to realize you are already good without it, because he was enough. So yeah.
Wow, that was powerful, Fatima. I feel like that was like a sermon by itself, honestly. And I'm so excited for you as well. Thank you so much for being willing to come on this platform. And like, you're someone who I look up to. And honestly, just may God continue to take you to higher heights and glory to glory, because you're going to continue to shine. So yeah, Fatima, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh,
I make my way to today,
oh yes, exactly.
which I'm gonna try.
Let me know, and let me know when you come to London. I will meet you in London. Yeah, yeah. It would be
I would
nice.
love that.
It would be nice to see you face to face. Yeah. So you have to
Yes.
let me know. But Fatima, where can we find you on social media? Like, what are your handles?
Yes, I scroll on TikTok, but I don't really use TikTok. So Instagram is the place to find me. Fatima, Fatima Elswify, Elswify. That is my handle. Yeah, that's where I do everything. Instagram is my place. So
Oh, amazing. So you know where to find her, guys. And also, Fatima, I did it because basically I love your name. So I like to Google like what names mean that I haven't heard before, or it's not quite unusual. And it means shined one or something like that, someone who shines. Obviously, you know this anyway.
It's crazy. I forget that there's so many meanings. So like, I actually needed to hear that today. So thank you for saying that. One that shines, because one of the other meanings is one who abstains. And I think that it also speaks to like my patience, because I think my middle name has something to do with patience too. But I needed that, because I feel like God is taking me out of like some hidden places. So thank you for saying that. Yeah.
Yes, I feel that for you 110%. But no, thank you, Fatima. Thank you for
What
having
does saffron
us.
mean? Sorry, I have to.
Saffron, it's a herb, and apparently like it changes color. Like, so a lot of people put it in their rice, like they put a lot of herbs in their rice. But I feel like I need to also dig deep, because I know that our names have like, there's a reason why.
Pay attention.
Yeah,
Look at those
pay
meanings.
attention. Yeah. Oh, well, thank you so much, Fatima. Thank you for listening, guys. So you know where to find us on Instagram. It's at _ ponder on that with Saffron, and also on YouTube, ponder on that with Saffron King. So thank you, guys, and enjoy the rest of your day. And remember that you have a purpose regardless of what life throws your way. God bless
Yeah.
you all. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.